Hi everyone, it's Grayson and this is Grayson Talks Everything. If you're new to the channel, welcome, and if you're not new and are returning, welcome back. Do be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And also follow my Instagram if you want to know when videos of mine are coming out or when they're in the making. And to just admire some fan art of mine that I regularly post on Instagram. Some of my Instagram pictures should be showing up on the screen right now. The link to my Instagram is always in the description, but if you want to know my Instagram right this second so you can follow me immediately, that should be showing up on the screen right now. Alright, let's get into it. Today, we are finally talking about the season finale of Loki, which was so good, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry this came out super later than I expected it to. I'm in Mexico right now. I'm on my summer vacation, so it came a little late. So that's my bad. I'm sorry. But let's get into it. Loki episode 6, the season finale. So good. Oh, spoiler warning, but it's like Sunday now, so you've had time to watch it. You've had time to watch the season finale. Let's get into it. Let's get into it right now. This episode kind of made me feel like Kang because, like this character, I kind of knew what was going to happen because I've read the time-traveling stories from the comics, but I also kind of didn't because this is an MCU adaptation. It was actually really exciting, and after that explosive season finale, this might be one of the best pieces of content Marvel has ever put out. And since WandaVision will not continue to a second season, unlike Loki, this has the potential to be just as ambitious when it comes to comic book storytelling as Doom Patrol or Legion. It's also awesome that we didn't get Ralph Boner this episode, probably because there were actual evidence that Kang's arrival into the MCU was happening this quick. Though I still can't believe they went more into Loki and Sylvie's romance, even though the fans were heavily opposed to that. But that's just my opinion, or just one gripe with the episode, to be honest. Overall, I just love this show. I'm so excited for season 2. Now let's break it down. Loki season 1 is over, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe will never be the same. Here's the Loki ending explained, and everything else you need to know. The series' long-awaited Season 1 finale dropped on Disney Plus Wednesday morning, and unlike WandaVision and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier finales, it doesn't disappoint. Instead, Loki Episode 6 gives Marvel's fans everywhere the thing they've been wanting nearly a year. A surprise that manages to follow through on all of the comic book Easter eggs sprinkled throughout Loki's first 5 episodes and wrap up many of the season's ongoing character arc. The episode fundamentally changes the entire landscape of the MCU in a way that hasn't been done since Thanos snapped his fingers at the end of Avengers Infinity War. To put it in another way, Phase 4 of the MCU has officially begun, and there's no turning back now. Picking up immediately where Loki Episode 5 left off, Episode 6, titled For All Time, Always, sees Loki and Sylvie reach the mysterious citadel at the end of time that was teased for the first time last week. Once there, the two Loki variants finally come face to face with the man behind the curtain, the same one responsible for all the Time Variance Authority's many lies and misdeeds. In a stunning turn, the character is played by none other than Jonathan Majors, who late last year was officially cast as Kang the Conqueror in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. The only catch is that Majors isn't playing Kang the Conqueror in Loki Episode 6, though. Well, not exactly, at least. While it's safe to assume that he's playing a version of Kang, or most likely someone like Nathaniel Richards to go by his birth name, the actual name Kang is never uttered out loud at any point throughout the episode, though Majors does refer to himself as a conqueror at one point. Instead, Majors appears in Loki Episode 6 as He Who Remains, a Kang variant who created the TVA and has been using the organization to keep the multiverse from breaking into all-out war. In the comics, He Who Remains is the final director of the TVA. Much like he does in Loki Episode 6, he resides in the Citadel at the end of time and is responsible for the creation of beings known as the Time Twisters.
Created in order to teach and inform the inhabitants of a future universe, the Time Twisters actually began going back in time and destroying the current universe. Thor and Jane Foster eventually informed He Who Remains of his mistake, which resulted in him aborting their creation in favor for a better version of them, known as, wait for it, the Timekeepers. At that point, two divergent realities were created, one in which the Time Twisters were born and the Timekeepers weren't, and one where it was the other way around. Loki's version of He Who Remains is similar in a few ways to his comic book counterpart, primarily in regards to his role as the creator of the Timekeepers and the Time Variance Authority in general. However, it's revealed in Loki that the Timekeepers never actually existed and were merely fictional beings made up by He Who Remains. The character as a whole, though, has essentially been repurposed for the MCU, as Marvel Studios has done a number of times before with previous films and shows. In this instance, it's revealed that He Who Remains is actually a Kang variant who harnessed and used the power of Alioth, seen in Loki episode 5, to bring an end to the multiverse war that nearly destroyed all of reality, a concept first mentioned in Loki episode 1's TVA ad. It's also revealed that the multiverse war itself was actually the result of Kang variants from different realities going to war with each other after he discovered the multiverse in the 31st century. Jonathan Majors' appearance in Loki episode 6 serves two key purposes. It confirms and expands upon the multiversal history of the MCU first hinted at in Loki episode 1, and sets up Kang to be a present and formidable figure in the MCU moving forward. As He Who Remains details extensively in Loki episode 6 as well, he's the only thing standing in the way of another Kang variant being created, breaking loose, and sending the multiverse into chaos again. That's a good thing, he argues, even if it means his methods of controlling the multiverse aren't easy to accept or morally right. Of course, He Who Remains' warnings go unheeded. After offering to let Sylvie and Loki take over the TVA in his place, He Who Remains watches passively as the two variants break out into a fight in his office. Loki argues for the continued existence of both He Who Remains and the TVA, completing his season-long arc from selfish narcissist to semi-selfless warrior. Sylvie, however, can't let go of her desire for revenge against He Who Remains and the TVA. After kissing Loki for the first time, Sylvie uses He Who Remains' Tempad to send Loki away from the Citadel through a time portal. Without Loki to stop her, she plunges her sword into He Who Remains' chest. The character dies smiling and with his last breath promises Sylvie that he'll see her soon. Sylvie collapses on the floor, empty and unfulfilled, and outside the Citadel at the end of time, an endless amount of new branch realities begin to form. It's the creation of a new multiverse we're witnessing, and one that doesn't seem particularly stable. Call it a multiverse of madness, if you will. It doesn't take long for He Who Remains' parting promise to come to fruition either. In its final minutes, Loki episode 6 sees Hiddleston's God of Mischief return to the TVA. Desperate and fearful for the havoc that will come as a result of He Who Remains' death, he searches the TVA for Mobius, but when he finally finds his newfound ally, Mobius doesn't recognize him. Panicked and confused, Loki begins looking all around him for any form of an answer and finds one just a few feet away. As terror dawns on Loki's face, the episode cuts to reveal what he's looking at. A single statue of Kang the Conqueror, where the TVA's usual timekeeper statues should be. While Loki episode 6 leaves a lot up to interpretation, the implication seems to be that Sylvie sent Loki into one of the new branch realities instead of his original timeline, one where Kang rules the TVA much more directly. The episode cuts to black from there, but in its sole post-credits singer confirms that Loki will return for a second season. It's an announcement that had already been hinted at by a few times by Marvel Studios execs in the past, but based on everything that happens in Loki episode 6, it's clear that there will be plenty of new material for the Disney Plus series to work with when it returns for season 2. Something tells us that we won't have to wait for Loki Season 2 to see Jonathan Majors' Kang again, though. In fact, if there's one thing that the end of Loki Episode 6 seems to make explicitly clear, is that not only is Kang finally here, but we're about to get starting to see a whole lot more of him. See you soon indeed. As the Disney Plus series ends its first season this week, Loki is still in the Time Variance Authority headquarters with Mobius and Hunter B-15, while Sylvie is still in the Citadel at the end of time, having freshly slain He Who Remains. Suddenly, the TVA is under new management, a variant of He Who Remains, who is definitely Kang the Conqueror. One character was left out of the series epilogue though, Judge Ravonna Renslayer. We saw the character researching, then in a former life as a high school teacher, but she most recently left the TVA in search of what she called free will. So what does this mean? Marvel Comics revealed the most likely fate ahead of this pivotal character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. One thing is abundantly clear though. Ravonna Renslayer has made her allegiances clear going into Loki Season 2. After clashing with Agent Mobius over the crisis of faith that prompted him to throw away eons of friendship over the truth Loki uncovered, Renslayer is sticking with the TVA, which means she's likely to remain loyal to whoever's running the bureaucracy. And yet, it's unclear how Kang's TVA takeover will impact Renslayer. Could Renslayer now be working personally for Kang, or will she retain memories of the past like Loki? This is a major question Loki Season 2 will need to answer, though clues may lie in whatever files He Who Remains sent to Renslayer's TemPad at the beginning of the finale. These weren't the files that she was looking for, but based on her reaction, they're obviously the files she needed. Knowing his life was in danger, He Who Remains could have sent any amount of relevant information to Renslayer as a kind of failsafe. Looking back at Marvel Comics, Renslayer's previous comic book appearances could hold the key to this character's next step. Ravonna Renslayer was first introduced in the Avengers issue 23 as the daughter of a king in the 40th century Earth. In these issues, Kang became enamored with Renslayer, but she rightfully saw him as nothing more than a villain and was hesitant to be involved with him. However, Kang knew how to conquer, and that extended to conquering Renslayer's heart. Eventually, she fell in love with him. Over the course of Renslayer's comics career, she was usually at Kang's side, the Harley Quinn to his Joker. However, after a long and very complicated period of death and revival, Renslayer found herself pitted against Kang, and she sought to get revenge on the Conqueror. She took on the name Terminatrix and even assumed control of Kang's empire for a time. Renslayer's storyline spans decades of comics, so her entire story won't likely be used in future seasons of Loki. But becoming Kang's sidekick would be an interesting progression for the character, especially if she, like other TVA members, had her memories affected by Kang taking over. Given that Renslayer is in possession of sensitive information personally selected by He Who Remains, she could be getting a head start on villainy, even if it's villainy in search of free will. Thus far, Renslayer has been a well-meaning peacekeeper in the MCU, but Loki Season 2 may be the perfect opportunity for the character to take on a new role by Kang's side. And if there happens to be a romance between the two, well, after 6 episodes dedicated to Loki and falling in love with another version of himself, Season 2 could shift the focus to a time-honored trope, the big bad and his partner in crime, a no-nonsense Bonnie to Kang's all-conquering Clyde.
So there you have it. That's my full spoiler review and breakdown of the Loki season finale. What did you think? Share your thoughts down below. And again, don't forget to like, comment, and share and all that fun stuff. And also follow my Instagram again so you never miss updates on when videos of mine are coming out. And again, to admire some fan art of mine that I regularly post on there. Alright, bye everyone. Have a great summer. I'll start posting regularly again this week.